This time on Cryptid Mysterious, Bob and Terry Rawlings recount their incredible tale of sighting two giant Bigfoot in 2016. Here's their story. Bob and I had retired after 2 long careers as professors at California colleges. We had talked about moving somewhere in the Pacific Northwest and purchasing a timber frame style home. Our punch list was quite simple for what and where the home would be. Our desire was for some seclusion without achieving a hermit's life in the process. We were looking for considerable acreage, if possible, including the possibility of wildlife in the area. Lastly, the home must be constructed of either timber frame or log inclusive of stone of some sort. Our budget for the move was in the neighborhood of $2 million. We had done a considerable amount of research around this home purchase and had determined this number would land us exactly what we wanted. Terry and I had made contact with an executive realty service, and they were well known in the industry for locating fairly high-end properties for the wealthy and famous. We had seen several beautiful homes over about 3 months, and none had quite met our liking. One afternoon, the realtor called and told us that she had been contacted with what she called a deal of a lifetime on a home in Oregon. She said the buyers were highly motivated to sell and the price was well below retail on similar homes. She came into our house, showed us a portfolio of fantastic pictures, and off to Oregon we went. When we had arrived at the house, I couldn't believe what we were walking into. "Honey, let me take Bill on a little sidetrack here for just a minute." The two of us had really done our homework on this style of home for over a year. We knew construction costs and acreage prices fairly well before we entered into this. Initially, we were thinking of having a home built, but we had steered away from that because of time concerns and decided to purchase an already built instead. "Go ahead, honey. Finish what you were saying before I interrupted." Anyway, as we went inside, we were introduced to the couple who owned the place. They had only been living there for 4 years. They told us they had to relocate quickly because of some urgent family issues in the east. Now, I was already calculating during our tour that on a bad day, this home must have cost them $2.5 million to construct, and their asking price was $1.8 million. A short while later, we were out in the yard where we came upon a contractor and 2 men doing some repairs on what amounted to be the best chicken coop on the planet. We knew it was a coop, but it had no chickens in it, and we could easily tell that it had by looking at it. This glorious coop was built in timber frame like the rest of the house. When I asked what had damaged the structure, the owner said it was from a storm. Now I'm nobody's fool, and although we were standing close to a lot of forest, there was nothing near the home that could have fallen on it. And I couldn't help wondering how this damage had occurred. Nevertheless, having toured the home, my wife and I went aside privately to discuss matters, and we were in total agreement that this was the home for us. We told them on the spot we would pay 1.7 cash, and the deal was done. Without boring you with all the workings of the sale and the move, suffice to say, we had arrived and were living in the home. During all the time that had passed after the sale, my wife and I must have had 100 discussions about why this couple would sell so cheaply after investing so much and only living there for 4 years. But nevertheless, the home was now ours, and we were glad to be there. Over time, this chicken coop had become a little bit of an enigma to us. It had to have cost $30,000 or $40,000 to build, and it wasn't being used. We never did ask the previous couple what had happened to the chickens. I guess that at the time we thought they had just removed them, knowing they were going to sell the house. However, before we get into our dealings with the coop, there is something that we must tell you. We were located in a fairly secluded property, which was in close proximity to a very large forested area. The only reason that I even mention this is during our first year in the home, my wife and I had regularly been hearing what I would call a whoop, whoop, whoop sound coming from the forest. My wife heard it first and asked me what kind of animals could make such a sound. I thought it might have been an elk or something like that, and really never gave it much thought. It was sometime later when we both became aware of what I described as a wood block sound from an orchestra. They were very distinct sounds occurring sporadically, just like when the mallet strikes the hollow block during a piece of music. So now we were hearing a whoop and an occasional knock. I think it was in our second year that my wife and I were now giving some serious consideration to the coop and getting the coop up and running again. It wasn't something that you would just knock down or remodel. This was a purpose-built timber frame chicken coop. It was designed that the outdoor pen butted against the long side of the building and had a large barn-type doors on both ends, which gave you access to the hen house and the eggs. It was very well thought out and constructed. The two of us did more than a little research into what was involved in raising chickens for eggs, and the resurgence of the coop was complete. It wasn't long into our newfound venture as chicken farmers when I went out to get some eggs and found some chickens were running loose around the property. I wondered how they got out. Of course, as I walked over to the coop, I saw that a large portion of the pen's wire had been peeled back, and I stood there staring at it. Actually, I never did catch all of the chickens and was uncertain of what may have been taken and what was actually lost after the fact, as you will soon learn. Now, we are retired professors, not hunters. In fact, in both of our combined lifetimes, neither of us have ever so much as handled a gun, let alone fired one. I say that now because I really didn't look at the scene the way a hunter might have, looking for footprints or the like. I simply thought that some critter had torn open the fencing to get at the chickens, and was successful in doing so. I inquired locally for someone to do the repairs, and actually, by no other means than pure dumb luck, I'd contacted the same guy who had done the repair the day that we were looking at the house. So when he came over, he said, "I knew it was this house when you called me." As we were looking at the wire, I asked him about the last repair he had done, which to us looked quite extensive in nature. I told him that the owner said some storm had hit it, and he started laughing hysterically. He said to me, "A storm damaged my ass. The entire end of the building and the front of the coop was destroyed by animals. There was no storm damage, my friend." Now, my mind was spinning about the cheap sale price and the need to move quickly for family matters. If they lied about the coop, the rest was a lie also. I said to him, "Well, I still have 9 chickens in the building, so if you could please just repair the fencing, I'll see what happens. I think it was maybe 2 or 3 days later, when my wife and I were returning from dinner in town, that I swung into the driveway rather quickly with my high beams on. Out here and there are plenty of animals. Out here, there are plenty of animals to run into, so it's high beams all the time. From the end of the driveway, looking right at the end of the coop, I see the door was wide open, and this was not how I left it among leaving the home that night. Just a few hours beforehand, my wife had noticed it at the same time I did. I had just opened the door to step out, leaving the car running, when not one, but 2 gigantic, hairy monsters came crashing out of the coop, smashing the doors out of their way in the process. The 2 of them paused for a split second, staring at the car's lights and contorting their upper bodies, and then as fast as they had emerged from the shed, they were gone like a shot into the darkness. Now, we knew the truth of what had actually happened to the former owners. We called the contractor back over, and he was shocked when I told him that 2 Bigfoot had ransacked the coop. He did say that this is exactly what he suspected the first time around, but he hadn't said anything to them. I asked him if he'd ever seen any, to which he said no, adding that there are many others who say they have. In the days following, I actually paid him to demolish the coop and take it off the property. During the weeks and months following this encounter, my wife and I were going to immediately sell the home like the previous owners, and thankfully, we didn't act hastily. After 6 months or so, all of the whooping and knocks had ceased, and there were no further issues around the house. I asked the couple about any details in regards to when the Bigfoot came out of the shed, and here's what they had to say. Well, everything happened so quickly. The 2 beasts came out virtually on top of each other. They had to have ducked down to be in there to get in and out. I say this because in the few seconds that we saw them in the light, they were both virtually 9 feet tall, and they looked like twins. The coop was 10 feet tall wide at the end, and their upper bodies, when standing side by side, concealed the entire side of the coop. One of them had actually smashed through 2 of the boards on the ramp leading into the coop when they came out. The boards were 2x8 cedar, supported underneath by cross members. I don't know what type of weight or force would have been needed to accomplish that, but it did. I will also tell you this. The human mind is not capable of registering these things. They are so big and so otherworldly, you cannot believe what you are seeing, yet you are seeing it. Well, that's it for today's story. Thank you for listening. Please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and if you have had an encounter and would like it featured here on the channel, please send an email to cryptidmysterious@gmail.com with including as much detail as possible, and I'll do what I can to get the story up on the channel. Thanks again. Have a good night.